This man took me on one of the wildest dates I've ever been on. Back in 2013, my best friend and her husband set me up with their good friend, a man who owned a local body shop. So after texting for a few weeks, we decided to meet up and go out that Friday. So I'm standing at the door waiting when my date pulls up in an old Chevy Love truck that was missing half of its parts. Now this is not his truck, but it's the only picture I could find that looked like his truck. This man was driving an old Chevy Love truck with no hood, a cracked windshield like a spider web, you couldn't even see through it, missing the right door, and had half the left door. So we get ready to leave and he asked me if I would drive his truck because he'd been drinking a little bit that day, and I said yeah. So me and him get in the truck and I try to crank it up, but it won't start, and that's when he tells me, oh, I forgot the battery's dead, we'll have to push crank it. We had just had a tropical storm, so there was mud holes everywhere. Now when you're push cranking an old Love truck, you have to jump in while it's moving. So as this truck is moving, I jump in the driver's seat and then he falls face first onto the pavement and gets drugged by the truck. He takes off running and is finally able to jump in the truck, and we start heading towards his house. When I came close to that stop sign, I threw it in neutral and was trying to slow down, but when I pressed the brakes, the truck wouldn't stop, and that was when he thought to tell me, oh, the brake pads are really bad, you basically don't have any brakes. So I had to roll through a stop sign, praying to God there was no traffic coming, and luckily there wasn't. I kept thinking, we'll be fine as long as we don't come up on any steep hills or any sharp turns, and that was when I saw one of the sharpest curves I ever seen in my life. It had a only go 5 miles per hour sign. I thought, okay, it'll be fine, don't freak out, just drop down a gear, but every time I tried to drop gears, it wouldn't go. So I tried to throw it back in neutral, and that was when the whole damn gear stick came up out the floorboard, and I was holding it up in the air with my hand. I said, oh my God. He said, oh, sometimes it does that, and then he takes the gear stick out of my hand and starts trying to shove it back into the floorboard. I looked down for the emergency brake, but there wasn't one. It was dangling somewhere in the other floorboard. It was gone. So by now, I was really freaking out. I said, so what's the next plan? Are we supposed to stop it with our bare feet like the Flintstones? Well, that sharp curve was on a fork in the road, so he said, take that road right there. It goes to my grandpa's. So I veered off towards the right, and we start going down a long, bumpy dirt road. The road goes down a steep hill, so now we pick up speed, and we're going about 65 miles per hour with no brakes. So while both of our heads are beating and banging around like two bobblehead dolls, he grabs the old shit handle and starts singing A Country Boy Can Survive. So now we're going down this steep-ass hill in the truck that's basically falling apart at this point. We're losing shit, like the bumper's falling off, the door handle broke off, the side mirror, pieces and parts are just flying everywhere. I said, dude, you don't have first gear, you ain't got reverse, you don't have an emergency brake, you ain't got a windshield, a door, a tire, why are you driving this damn death trap? After driving down this road for what seems like forever, we finally come up to this big ass pit like a giant hole, and we went right over the edge about 35 miles per hour, hit the ground and kept going. It was like something out of a movie. So now we're stuck in this giant mud pit where the truck is rolling up and down, and we have to wait for it to stop rolling before we can get out. The truck finally stops and we both get out, and I'm sweating, shaking, about to throw up. I'm traumatized, and then he walks around and grabs my hand and says, that was so much fun, this is the best date I've ever been on. I said, you are legit crazy. He said, no, the way you handled that truck, it was so sexy. I said, really? And then we wound up having sex in the pit, and it was so good. Then we had to walk from this pit back to his house, which took over an hour in the North Carolina heat. The gnats was all in our face, we were sweating. And when we finally get to his house, that's where I see a brand new Chevrolet truck sitting in his driveway. So after all that, he got sober, I set him up with my friend, they got married, had kids, and now we all look back and laugh about it.